So basically, why exactly the SOX came into existence? The very first question saying that in the year 2000, there were so many bankruptcies happening. The Enron Files bankruptcy happened. The WorldCom bankruptcy happened. So this was the very largest bankruptcy in history. So at that particular point of time, thousands of investors lost billions of dollars and trillions in confidence. So two people, Paul Sarbanes and Michael Oxley, these two people, one from senator from Maryland and the congressman from Ohio, these people thought that enough is enough, we have to bring some strong regulation. Otherwise what would really happen is that one person would definitely the customers would lose confidence in the public listed companies. So we have to do something, we have to bring a strong regulation in the market so that people should start believing in the public listed company. So that was the only reason the SOX Act came into existence in the year 2002. So so when this particular SOX Act was drafted in the year 2002, there were some goals being drafted. So basically, it was focused on the points where there are more pain areas. The very first pain area was like the senior most managers, because till that particular point of time, if you might have seen the Satyam scam happening in the year 2008, uh, the it was coming from the top management only, wherein there was some manipulation done at the higher level, and because of that this that fraud happened. So similarly, the very first goal, if you can see in the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, to bring in significant level of responsibility to the senior most managers such as CEO, CIO, and CFO, saying that whenever any senior management, like someone from CEO, CIO, CFO, sign a particular financial statement, he should be held responsible for that. He should not say that no, I someone down the lane has gone through that particular document and I signed it. I was not, I have not reviewed the entire financial statement, so I'm not responsible for it. He should not say that. If he has signed a particular document, then he should be equally responsible for that financial statement. So that was the very first goal of that particular SOX Act. The second goal was to protect investors and increase their confidence in public listed companies. So basically, why you want to bring this strong regulation in this particular SOX Act? Because to increase the confidence of the in the public listed companies, to increase the confidence of the customers in the public listed companies. And the third goal was to tighten the regulation of independent auditors. To tighten the regulation of independent auditors means whenever an audit is being conducted, it should be conducted independently. Someone should not be under the influence of senior management. If at all an external auditor comes into a particular company and trying to do an audit, he should do an independent review of the audit. He should not be under the influence of any senior management and try to influence that particular audit, saying that you don't show these weakness in this particular audit report, you show only the strengths. So these things should not happen. He should conduct the audit independently, and who should highlight all the strengths and weakness that should be highlighted in the audit report. Then the fourth point talks about to ensure proper reporting of financial results. So whatever the reports are out, it should be properly reported, and the CEO, CFO, CIO should certify this on a quarterly and annual basis as well. And any untrue statements, any material fact, it should be fairly presented in the public domain as well. So before getting into this public domain, the CEO, the senior management should ensure that they review it, and once they review it, then only it should get into the public domain. So these are the different goals of the SOX Act. So basically, SOX is a compliance. Auditor has to make sure that their company's SOX compliant. So basically, these are the SOX goals. These are the SOX goals. So from an interviewer point of view, an interviewer will definitely ask you a question saying that what are the goals of SOX. Then you have to explain all these goals of the SOX. So basically, whenever someone asks you to ask you about this question saying that what are the goals of the SOX, then you have to explain each and every point very briefly to the interviewer as well. Because whenever you try to explain this point very briefly, what would really happen is that the interviewer will not have a second question on that. So if you give some cut to cut answers to an interviewer saying that to bring in significant level of responsibility senior such as he, then the second question will come from that interviewer saying that can you please explain me what do you mean by this. So instead of letting him ask you some question, you should be able to explain him in detail what exactly mean by this. So that is the only reason I'm trying to explain each and every point here, because tomorrow you also should explain to the interviewer in the similar fashion, saying that okay, this point means this point means this, so that an interviewer will not ask you a second question. And in the other way as well, if you talk more in an interview, then you will have less questions from an interviewer. If you talk less, then interviewer will ask you more questions. So it's better you talk more and let the interviewer talk less, so that it would be an advantage for you to simply crack that particular interview, because it would be a feeling that you have answered each and every question that an interviewer had asked. So it would be easy to crack the interview. So basically, this is the goals of SOX: to bring in significant level of responsibility to senior most managers such as CEO, CIO, CFO, to protect investors and increase the confidence in public listed companies, to tighten the regulation of independent auditors, to ensure proper reporting of financial results, and CFO, CEO, CIO should certify quarterly and annual reports, and anything that has been reported in the public domain should be fairly present, and all material facts should be present fairly in the public domain as well. So basically, SOX is a compliant. Auditor has to make sure that the company is SOX compliant. So these are the goals of SOX. Now, for which of the companies SOX is applicable? SOX is applicable to only US public listed companies and global companies with US public traded operations. All corporations that fall under the jurisdiction of US Security and Exchange Commission, private firms interested in going public, private firms that may acquisition and merger by a public listed firm. Provision does not apply to non-profit organizations and private companies. So basically, SOX is applicable to US public listed companies, and also to the private firms which wants to go public, and also to the private firms which wants to get merger into a public listed company. So basically, SOX is applicable to US public listed companies. Then you might have a question here saying that if SOX is applicable to a US public listed company, so what about the Indian companies, Indian banks? Why SOX is not applicable here? So SOX is also applicable here on a similar lines, which is called as IFC, which is called as internal financial controls. So IFC is on the similar lines that of a SOX. So basically, SOX is applicable to US public listed companies as well. And private firms and non-profit organizations like NGO, SOX is not at all applicable. But as I told you, saying that whenever you get into a market and try to buy a particular product, you see the ISI mark of that particular product. So then what you do is you try to buy that particular product, because you know that if it is ISI mark, then it will have it is of a good quality product. Then what you do, you will try to buy that particular product. Similarly, even if SOX is not applicable to you, being in non-profit organizations like NGOs or private companies, if you are still SOX certified, people will have a different view towards your company, saying that if you say you're SOX certified, means people have an image saying that SOX compliance, if you're SOX certified, means it provides a reasonable assurance that the organization is managed effectively and honestly. So that would get an advantage. Because of that, you will get more business, trust, brand, reputation, everything will come along with it. So that is the reason, even if it is not applicable for you as a non-profit organization or as a private company, still you follow SOX, because you have many advantages because of that. So that is the reason. This is one question an interviewer will definitely ask: what are the companies affected by SOX, and what are the companies which are not affected by SOX? So you have to explain these things to an interviewer as well. They saying that all US public listed companies SOX is applicable. Whichever public wants to private companies wants to get into public, SOX is applicable, and whichever private companies wants to get into a merger with a public listed company, SOX is applicable to them as well. And SOX is not applicable to non-profit organizations like NGO, and as well as to the private companies. So this is what we are going to explain it to an interviewer as well. Now we have seen what are the goals of SOX. Now we have seen what are the companies affected by SOX, means what are the companies which are applicable for SOX, and what are the companies which are not applicable. Now we are going to see what would happen if some company SOX is applicable and still they don't follow it. What would be the consequences? Failure to comply with SARMANLE exposes senior management to possible penalty up to 20 years, significant penalty as much as 5 billion or both. So basically, if you if you are a public listed company, or for you the SOX is mandated and you're not following it, means you will your senior management will expose and they will get prison time up to 20 years and significant penalties as well. External auditors will not sign on the attestation of a control structure of compliance check investigation. Small problem will become a major issue, and because of that you will lose brand, you'll lose reputation in the market, and because of that your stock prices will get affected as well. So that would be the consequences if you don't comply with SOX, if it is mandatory for you. So this question also will be asked by the interviewer, saying that what would really happen or consequences if you don't follow SOX. So these would be the 4 consequences. So basically, Sarbanes-Oxley compliance is a way of demonstrating due diligence, regardless of this act is actually mandatory. Sarbanes-Oxley compliance provides reasonable assurance that the organization manage effectively and honestly. So why we say a reasonable assurance? Why we don't say that it is provide assurance? If we say assurance, means whatever the audit is being conducted, we say that it is 100% that the audit is being conducted is correct. We say reasonable assurance because we are not testing the whole samples. We are selecting only a portion of the samples. If at all somebody has provided a user list of 1,000 users, we are trying to test only a portion of it. We are not testing the entire user list. We select a portion of the list, we try to test it. That is the only reason we see that we are giving reasonable assurance that the organization manage effectively and honestly. So we are not going giving 100% assurance that the organization is managed effectively. We are only given reasonable assurance, because whatever the sampling we do, we don't do 100, we don't test the 100% samples which is there in front of us. We only select the samples 5%, 10%, and based on that we give the results. So basically, ICOFR is called internal control over financial reporting. So ITGC is mainly over ICOFR, which is internal control over financial reporting. So SOX is a set of rules and regulations, government issued law. We need to adhere as many as we can. It is to make sure that malpractices are avoided. It is a regulation. So we have different sections of SOX, components of SOX. The very first section talks about public company accounting oversights, which covers section 101 to 109. So it's not mandatory for you to remember all these sections, but you need to understand basically what all these sections are. And we are focusing more on section 404 and section 302, because those two sections are from the IT domain. So the very first section, if you can see, public company accounting oversight 101 to 109, it says that whenever a public listed company is there in the market, they have to register in Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, which is called as PCOB board. They have to register over there. Once they register, then they will provide you guidelines of SOX. Then you have to adhere to those guidelines and ensure that an external auditor will come and do the audit for you, and he'll give you the SOX certification. If there are any observations, then obviously you have to correct those things as well. Auditor's independence. Auditor's independence is nothing but, as I told you, whenever an independent auditor comes, he has to conduct the independent audit. He should not be under the influence of any senior management. So that talks about auditor's independence. Section 301, 302 corporate responsibility talks about the CEO, CIO, CFO should review the financial statement before getting into the market. They should ensure that they review this file quarterly basis, half yearly basis, and they should fairly present into the public domain as well. And the next section talks about 401 to 409 enhanced financial disclosure. So basically section 404A, section 404B, ITGC talks about ITGC design and ITGC implementation. So basically there are these many sections. So if you want to be SOX certified, you have to follow all these sections. So out of these all sections, these two are IT related and the rest are all finance related. So finance people will try to cover the finance part, IT people will cover the IT part. Together they will ensure that they are SOX compliant. And end of the day, once the external auditor review all these documents, then they will file it and they will try to ensure that you are SOC certified. And if there are any observations, they will try to highlight those observations as well. So one fine question was asked by one of the interviewer, was that a bit tricky question. He asked me, Santosh, if you follow SOX, then you follow ITGC, or if you follow ITGC, then you follow SOX. So it was like the other way around. I said that, see, if you follow SOX, then obviously you have to follow ITGC. If you follow ITGC, then you don't follow SOX, because it's the other way around, saying that if you want to be SOX certified, you have to follow ITGC. If you want to be ITGC, if you only follow ITGC, then you cannot say that you are SOX certified. We have to follow the other sections as well, then only you can say that you are SOX certified. Then how do you implement SOX? By implementing ITGC. So in few of the companies, it is also called as ITGC, GITC and GCC. If you go to Deloitte, if you go to KPMG, their ITGC is also called as GITC or GCC. So whenever you keep IT general controls or ITGC in your resume, ensure that you keep this oblique GITC, GCC in your resume. Reason is that if tomorrow there is an opening where Deloitte has provided opening in the market, they will call it as GITC. And if your resume does not have GITC, then it will not get shortlisted, because nowadays the bot selects the resume based on the characters or the terminologies, whatever it is. So based on that they will select. So if your resume does not have that particular terminology, then obviously your resume will not get shortlisted. So that is the reason, whenever you keep this ITGC in your resume, ensure that you keep oblique GITC, oblique GCC as well. So basically, what exactly is ITGC? It is called as IT General Controls. It can be defined as an internal control that assure the security, stability, and reliable performance of the computer, hardware, software, and 90% connected to financial or other system. So basically, it is an internal control that assure the security, stability, and reliable performance of the computer hardware. It's not only computer hardware; it includes software, IT personnel connected to financial or other systems. So basically, whatever the things which are connected to the financial other systems, all these things would be included. So internal control, it is nothing but it is a process that safeguards assets to the organization through policies and procedures. So basically, whenever you say that safeguards assets to the organization through policy and procedures, so whenever you listen to the word like asset, the very first thing comes to your mind that asset is nothing but hardware or a software. But it is not true. Whatever add values to the organization, it is called as an asset. It can be people, it can be process, it can be technology. So if you say that this particular person is an asset to the company, means this particular person as a people is an asset to a company. Hardware, if you have dependency on that hardware, it is an asset to the company. Process, policies and procedures of the company, that is also an asset. So anything that add values to the organization is called as an asset. So then there is a definition of policy and procedure as well. It is a set of standard guidelines that outline the organization goal to tackle an issue. Procedure, it specifies specific action to carry out the policy. You might have wondered why I have written these definitions over here. There were few interviewers who did ask me this particular question, saying that, Santosh, can you please tell me what is the difference between a policy and procedure as well? Somebody did ask me about internal control as well. So I thought like better I keep that in this particular document as well, so that tomorrow if someone asks you this particular question, what is the difference between a policy and procedure, or what is an internal control, then you should be able to tell it. So what we want to achieve by having these controls, as you know that if you have these controls in place, we achieve security, stability, confidence, customer confidence should be there, preserve bandwidth and reputation, protect trust as well. Where do you apply these controls? You can apply to any IT component, application, databases, processes, organization, architecture, information. So basically, IT general controls can be applied to any compliance, whether it is HIPAA, whether it is SOX, it can be applied to anything. So basically, ITCC has four components: access management, change management, incident management, IT operations management. So these are four control areas, I would say. ITGC has four control areas. One is access, one is change, one is incident, one is IT operation. Under each control area, we have different controls. So if you can see this access management, we have different controls under this. The very first control talks about user creation or access provisioning. The next control talks about user termination or access deprovisioning. Then we have password settings, then high privilege access, user access review. So today we are going to discuss about two things: user creation or access provisioning, user termination or access deprovisioning, and then we are going to stop. Uh, mm, two things we are going to discuss today. So the very first thing, user creation or access provisioning. So the very first thing I'm going to discuss now, saying that there are few audit terminologies you have to get used to it, saying that user creation can also be called as access provisioning. So whenever you hear anyone from an interviewer, he will ask you, oh hey Santosh, can you tell me the process of access provisioning? He will not say user creation. So then you have to understand that he's talking about user creation. So just try to get used to this particular terminology if you have not heard it. So access provisioning is like user creation, access deprovisioning is user termination. So basically just we'll try to understand what is user creation or access provisioning. So whenever you join a particular organization, the very first thing what happens on that particular day, and HR will come, you will be given a contact person of the HR, and HR, you will call up that HR on that particular day, on the very first day. And the HR, what he will do, she will do is that she will take you to the manager in whichever project you will be assigned to. So you will be going to that particular project. Once you go to that particular project, manager will have an initial introduction with you. Once you have an introduction, what next thing would happen is that he will introduce you to the other colleagues as well, and then someone from your team will raise an access for you, saying that from tomorrow onwards you are going to work for our particular project. So since this is your first day and you don't have any system with you, we are going to help you to raise access for you on your behalf. So one of your colleague, what he will do is he will raise a request in the system. If that particular project is using some ticketing tool, they will try to raise a request. Once they raise a request, where it will go? It will go to their manager. So what the manager will do, he will review it and he will approve it. Once he approves it, where it goes, it will go to the application team. So whichever team, whichever application you require access to, it will go to that particular team. So there they will also review the request. So they might have some uh, mm, conditions over there, saying that okay, if someone raises a request, they have to check whether this particular person is a normal user or an admin user. Means whether his role is into management or lead, or is a normal user. If he's a normal user, normal team member, then we will give you normal access. If you are a manager or a lead, then we have to give you admin level of access. So based on that, they will assign you the request. The first thing, the fourth thing they are going to check is whether his job responsibilities are matching or not to the access that has been requested. Saying that, for example, if I am from an HR department asking a request to have an access to your application, at least my responsibility should match. Means I should be using that application for quite long. If I'm not using that application and request access, that tomorrow somebody might question, why do you require this access? I have not heard that your team is using this particular application at any given point of time, then why are you using it? So they might question me as well. But if your job responsibilities are really matching, then they'll give you access. And then the last thing is that access request is access granted. So saying that if I requested you for user level access, then you should give me only user level access. You should not give me admin level of access. You might have seen, like for example, in IT companies, in few of the companies, you might have seen that if you know someone from the IT team, you say that boss, मैं रिक्वेस्ट रेस करूंगा और तुम मेरे को एडमिन का एक्सेस दे दो यार, मेरे को थोड़ा जरूरत लगेगा बाद में भी. So what eventually happen is that they will give you admin level access as well. You requested for user level access, they will give you admin level of access as well. So that should not be the case. Whatever you have requested, that only should be granted. So these are the things that in while doing user creation, you will check. So this is a base thing that I just try to give you an idea about what exactly is user access creation or access provisioning. Just I've tried to just give you an idea. So now, since you have heard this story, that what exactly goes behind this entire process. Now, from an auditor point of view, if you have been given this responsibility saying that go and audit this particular project or that particular application team. So we normally call the people who give us evidences or information, we call them control owner. He is responsible for that particular control, so he will be the owner of that particular control. So in this particular case, the team, which is like the application team, which is providing or giving access to all the people in the organization, is the control owner here. Now, if I as an auditor go to that particular team and audit, I know the design now, saying that whenever a ticket has been created, manager approves it, it will go to the application team, they'll review it based on their job profile, they will give you the access, and whatever is requested, that has been granted. Now I know your design. Now the very first question as an auditor I'm going to ask is, okay, I am going to audit for say 1 year. I'm going to ask them, can you please provide me a list of users which was created in the last 1 year? I'm going to ask this particular question to the application owner or the control owner, because he's responsible for that particular application. What he'll do is he'll give me a list. He will give me an Excel sheet which will have the list of users which has been created in the last 1 year. Now, from an auditor point of view, whenever somebody gives an Excel sheet, just try to listen very carefully to these points. Whenever somebody gives us an Excel sheet in the form of an Excel sheet, what exactly happens as an auditor, you know that the Excel sheet can be manipulated at any given point of time. Anyone can change any dates, any times in that, because it can be manipulated, it can be edited, right? So what exactly you will do as an auditor just to ensure the completeness and accuracy has been achieved? For the completeness needs to be achieved, you need to ask them, boss, where exactly you pull this request from? Where did you pull this report from actually for the last 1 year? He will say, sir, I have pulled this particular report from this particular query I have run, and I put the start date and end date as this, and then I got this entire report. Okay. Then for the completeness, you will say that, can you please provide me a screenshot of that particular report and give it to me? Because what I'll do is, if you are screenshot, the report says that you have downloaded 1,000 users, then the Excel sheet also should have 1,000 users, and the screenshot should also say 1,000 users. In this way, you match the completeness of it. Means now you know that this Excel sheet is not manipulated, because I have taken the screenshot as well, and in that screenshot, whatever the filter set, only one filter should be set over there, saying that plan start date and plan end date. No other filter should be set, so that the output should be manipulated. So the only one filter set is plan start date and end date. So based on that, you got the output 1,000 users, and the Excel sheet is also matching the 1,000 users. So this is called completeness. In audit terms, we call that this particular report or data which is given to you is complete now. Now we are going to check the accuracy part of it. What is accuracy part now? Whatever the data contained in that particular Excel sheet should be accurate. Now, it has been, as I told you, that 1,000 users are being given. So it's not possible to check the entire 1,000 users whether it is accurate or not. And it's not possible to ask the other person, can you please give me a screenshot for the entire 1,000 users? It's not at all possible as well. So base now, what we do is we do sampling. Out of that 1,000 users, you will select 5 or 10 users. And since it is user creation or access provisioning, for us, the important fields are when the ticket was created, and when someone has approved this particular ticket, who is the person who has approved the ticket. All these things are important for us. So what you will do is, you will select 5 or 10 users, and you will give these 10 users to the application owner, and you will ask that, can you please provide me a screenshot for these 10 users, that their creation date time is on this particular day, and this particular person is approved. Can you please provide me these details in the form of a screenshot? What the other person will do is, they'll provide you a screenshot. So once they give you the screenshot, what you will do is, you will match it with that Excel sheet, whether you will see that whether whatever the date and time is shown in this particular screenshot is matching with that particular Excel sheet or not. or do you feel that something is disconnect over there? So if it is matching, then you say that the data that is there inside that Excel sheet is also accurate. So now as an auditor, you have ensured that the data which is given to you is complete and accurate. Now the next process you will start saying that now you have selected 5 or 10 users. You will say that I have given you this particular user, these 5 to 10 users. Can you please provide me a screenshot for these 10 users, that for all these 10 users ticket has been created, their manager has approved, and application team has approved, reviewed the request, and their job responsibilities are matching, and access request is access granted. Each and every screenshot provided to me, and once they provide it to me, I will review each and every screenshot, and I will see that everything is matching. If something is missing, like somebody has got an access to an application without being approved, then I might raise that as an observation, saying that why this particular person got an access without any approval. Then I might raise a request, or I might ask a particular person how exactly this particular person got an access. So I might I might raise a observation here. So these are the things. How do you check from an auditor point of view in user access provisioning? From an interviewer point of view, an interviewer will definitely ask you a question saying that what is ITGC, what are the different components in access management, user creation or access provisioning, what is the process you follow, what are the things you are going to check as an auditor, all these things, and an interviewer might ask you this question. So whatever we have discussed till now, any questions in that before we move to the next last topic for today?
Yes, sir, I have one question, Mahesh here.
Yeah.
We are asking some samples. For example, he has given in large organization there are many peoples are there
Yeah.
in many departments. For example, consider one department there are around 1,000 employees are there.
Mhm.
So for we are selecting 5 to 10%, so taking some samples.
Right.
So we are choosing samples randomly. We need to choose, or we need to analyze it, and we need to select those samples.
See, basically, every project or every company follows a sampling methodology. Okay. So in that sampling methodology, whenever we'll discuss sampling session, I will tell you what are the different sampling techniques. But for now, to answer your particular question, so most of the companies do a random sampling, saying that randomly they'll select 5 to 10 users, and they will try to give it to that control owner and try to get the screenshots. Few of the companies follow a different strategy, saying that what they do is, if for the entire year, if you're taking if you're doing sampling, what they'll do is from April to June they will select 2 to 3 samples. July to September they will select 2 to 3 samples. September, October to December they will select 2 to 3 samples, and similar from January to March, so that the entire year is getting covered, and the number of samples they have to select, they will ensure that everything is getting covered in the whole year. Okay. So depending on the situation, they'll try to do some people, what they do is they will say that their project follows saying that out of if you have 1,000 users, try to do 5% of the sampling, try to test 5% of the sampling, try to select 5% of the sampling. In few of the users, what they do is they follow a different methodology, saying that mm, if 250 users are there in the list, and 10% of the sampling need to be, then they divide that 250 into 10 by 100. So every 10th sample needs to be selected. In that way they'll try to do the sampling. So different methodologies are there. Few people also do automated sampling as well. They will use a particular tool. In that particular tool they will upload that Excel sheet, and the tool will give you which row you need to select for sampling. So there are different methodologies. So every company or project follows a different methodology, but in general most of the companies follow random methodology only.
Okay, in while selecting random users, so if you are not able to selecting those so normal user there, so normal user here without approving, they has given access. So if you are not selected, means like if while selecting we missed due to some reason, some we are not
Yes.
able to identify
Yeah.
those. So what will be the issue? So
No,
it will comes
see,
under auditor.
no, no. So we are responsible only for the samples that we have selected. Okay. So we are not responsible for the samples which we have not selected. We are not responsible for the samples which we have not selected. We are only responsible for the samples which you have selected. And moreover, see, what happens is that uh, if you work as an auditor, if you are not working for the big fours, like big fours, like are the companies like Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, and EY. These are the four big fours. If you work for these four companies, most of the time you'll be working as an external auditor. If you are not working for these big fours, most of the companies, in whichever companies you work, if you are not working for the big fours, you will be working as an internal auditor. Internal auditor in the sense you will be responsible for that particular organization. Entire means like entire organization, you will be the responsible person as an internal auditor, and you have to ensure that right from April to next March financial year, you have to ensure that everything is in place from an audit perspective. And in the month of December, external auditors will start coming in from January 1st onwards, and you have to show your work as an internal auditor what you have done from April. They will review your entire work for the next 3 months. By end of March, they will review all your work for the entire year. Based on that, either they might have some observation or they will certify you. So basically, what you have to do is, as an internal auditor, you have to make sure that all the things are in place before the external auditor comes. If there are any uh, gaps, you have to make sure that you fill those gaps before an external audit happens. And there might be a scenario here as well, saying that, for example, if you have selected 5 samples and you have tested it and you have passed those samples, when an external auditor comes, he has also picked those 5 samples, same samples which you have selected. He got some observation and you didn't got any observation, then there might be an issue. Normally an external auditor will not highlight these things, saying that they will, first of all, they will not look uh, these things, that whether you have tested the sample, you have selected only these samples or not, all these things they will not look. But in general, they might question you, saying that when I tested, I got these questions or I got these observations, but why you didn't got those observations? Because your samples and my samples are one and the same. You should have got that. But end of the day, see, on that particular day and time, it's totally depend upon your mindset, what you have seen. Based on that, you have passed. You cannot compare that with the other auditor as well. So and every company follow a different methodology, so it totally depends. So you, end of the day, you will not be responsible saying that you have done something wrong or such one. I hope this is clear, right?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, user creation or access provision, as I told you, see, an auditor, whenever he will try to audit, right, it totally depends upon the design of that particular process. So in order to understand the design, you should first know which ticketing tool they are using. Once you know which ticketing tool they are using, then you will know that from where the ticket needs to be generated. Then the second thing, manager has approved. You should know who are the only people who approve this particular request. There might be two or three, four people who approve this request. So then you should know their names as well. Once you know their names, then only you have something to validate while testing, right? Okay, while testing, I need to see only these two three names, because during the, I know their design, they told me that these are the only three people who are going to approve the request. I should not see a fourth name over there. If I see a fourth name, then I might question them, was where this fourth person coming from? You told me only three names, why this fourth person coming from? And then when it goes to the application team for review, We might ask that particular application team, boss, on what basis you are giving access to the stakeholders? Do you have any criteria to say that I give admin access to this particular user, I give admin access to this particular user, manager or lead should get admin access, normal user should not get admin access? Is there any criteria? So all these things and questions, once we understand during the walkthrough process, then only we can go and test and see how effectively it is operating at the ground level. So basically, from an access provisioning point of view or user creation point of view, these are the five things that we normally check. Ticket has been created, whether the manager has approved or not, whether application and team has reviewed the request, job responsibilities are matching or not, access request is access granted. So what could go wrong if a risk involved if you don't follow this procedural process? Somebody might get limited access or additional access, mismatch of access roles and privileges, unauthorized access can also be given, and wrong validity access created in wrong systems as well. So these are the things might happen if you don't follow this process. So if you can see this user creation, inspect the evidence for a complete access required by users manager via an email or request ticket. The request ticket should be created either through an email or a request ticket through a ticketing tool. If somebody doesn't use the ticketing tool, an email will also do. Inspect ticket events to validate secondary approval if there is any secondary approval, like a primary manager is approving it, if there is secondary approval as well, we need to validate that as well. Inspect the application user list to verify access in the manager access request is access granted, and also user access matching with the job title. These are the four things that we need to check from a user creation or access provisioning point of view. So an interviewer might ask you a very direct question saying that, can you please explain me what are the things you are going to check in access provisioning or user creation? Then you will going to say all these four steps, and you are going to explain him what each and every step says. So if you say cut to cut answers, then he might ask you a second question. Don't allow that to happen any point of time. So that is the reason I'm trying to explain each and every step, so that you can explain in detail to that interviewer as well. So one interviewer did ask me an indirect question saying that, Santosh, can you please explain me what are the risks involved in user access provisioning and how you are going to control it? I said, so normally what are the risks involved in access provisioning? So these are the risks involved, and how you are going to control it, these are the steps. So basically it was an indirect question. So he didn't ask me access provisioning process or risk involved. He straightly asked me what are the risk involved and how you are going to control it. These is the things how you are going to control it, and these are the risks in access provisioning. So the very next thing we are going to discuss and we are going to stop for today is access deprovisioning or access termination. You might know that whenever somebody joins an organization, he leaves the organization or leaves the project. So whenever he leaves the project, it's the responsibility of the HR of the manager to raise a request and ensure that his access is timely removed. Otherwise, what would really happen? Security breach, intrusion, cyber attack, not easy to guess, data loss, all these things. Sorry. Data loss, unauthorized changes can happen, user is not accountable, access misuse can happen, unauthorized access can happen. So somebody might try to access the data from application from outside as well. If his access not removed, try to take an advantage of that particular application. Data loss might happen. All these things are the risk involved if you don't deactivate on time. So what are the things you are going to control it? The very first thing, you have to ensure that a termination request is raised. So whenever somebody leaves the organization or project, you have to ensure that a ticket has been raised that for a termination request, saying that a request has been raised saying that this particular user has left the company, try to remove his access. Second thing, inspect AD listing to verify network access for disabled. So AD is nothing but active directly, saying that you are going to connect with the IT admin team and say that boss, first उसका network का access उड़ा दो, means access to the system जो है वो उड़ा दो, means वो application को access ही नहीं कर पाएगा, क्योंकि उसके system में ही access नहीं होगा तो वो application को भी access नहीं कर पाएगा. बट स्टिल देर इज ए चांस कि अगर वेब इंटरफेस से हो रहा है तो वो बाहर से भी एक्सेस कर सकते हैं, सिस्टम की जरूरत ही नहीं तब. तो देन यू आर गोइंग टू वेरीफाई द एप्लीकेशन और कंट्रोल ओनर दैट कि भाई उसका एक्सेस तुम लोगों ने भी उड़ाया कि नहीं. क्योंकि ऑलरेडी मैंने एक टिकट रेस किया है जिसमें ऑलरेडी उसका टर्मिनेशन रिक्वेस्ट रेस किया है, मैंने एचआर को ऑलरेडी बता दिया है। तो आईटी एडमिन वालों ने तो काम कर दिया, सिस्टम से एक्सेस निकाल दिया उसका, बट एप्लीकेशन जो एप्लीकेशन को वो एक्सेस करते हैं उन लोगों ने भी निकाला है कि नहीं। And the last thing we are going to check is inspect the ticket events to verify termination of user have performed within 5 business days as per HR policy. जो भी रिक्वेस्ट रेज हुआ है फॉर टर्मिनेशन, it should be that should be action either on the last working day or as per HR policy or within 5 business days. So जो भी रिक्वेस्ट रेज हुआ है उसका एक्शन होना टाइमली जरूरी है। कि एचआर पॉलिसी अगर बोलता है कि उसका एक्सेस लास्ट डे पे डीएक्टिवेट होना चाहिए तो लास्ट डे पे ये सब काम हो जाना चाहिए। If there are any deviations, then you might have a concern. So here in this particular point, a very must and should question by an interviewer saying that they will ask you to explain the termination, user termination process, what things you are going to check. Similarly, what are the risk involved? These are the risk involved, how you are going to control it. These are the points you are going to control it. But the very important question somebody might ask you here saying that if at all while testing this particular control, you have come across that few users were not deactivated on time, then what would be your response on that? So that is a definite question from most of their interviewers coming. So basically, whenever you see that something is deviating from the process where somebody some users has to be deactivated on time but they were not deactivated on time, the very first thing you're going to ask them is the business justification. Business justification in the sense why this particular user was not deactivated in the time. रीजन क्या है, इसके पीछे क्या रीजन है? क्योंकि उसके पीछे बहुत कारण हो सकते हैं विच वी माइट नॉट नो। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, उसके पीछे ये भी कारण हो सकता है कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई वॉज working for one of the organization where I have come across these kind of issues, and the very first justification the HR gave us is like, sir, ये जितने भी यूजर्स डीएक्टिवेट नहीं हुए ये सब फील्ड एम्प्लॉयज है, मींस दे आर ऑल मार्केटिंग रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स, मेडिकल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स जो फील्ड पे जाते हैं। वो लोग जो रेजिग्नेशन सबमिट करते हैं ना, वो मैन्युअली सबमिट करते हैं, मींस लाइक ए रिटर्न एप्लीकेशन सेइंग दैट उनका सिस्टम में एप्लीकेशन में सिस्टम में वो सबमिट नहीं करते। वो लोग क्या करते हैं, एक पेपर पे लिख के देते हैं और वो मैनेजर को देते हैं। तो मैनेजर को जब भी टाइम रहता है ना, वो सिस्टम में एंट्री करता है और तब जाके पता चलता है उसने रिजाइन किया। सो देन based on that particular process as an auditor what we ask is like, okay, I totally accept ये पूरा reason I totally accept. Now let me know ये प्रोसेस में कहीं पे लिखा हुआ है क्या, आपके एचआर पॉलिसी में कहीं पे लिखा हुआ क्या कि ये जो मैनुअल रेजिग्नेशंस है इसके लिए कितने टाइम में सिस्टम में एंट्री होना चाहिए और कब तक सिस्टम से इनका एक्सेस डीएक्टिवेट होना चाहिए, इसका कुछ प्रोसेस बना हुआ है क्या आपके पास? अगर इफ द आंसर इज नो, तो देर इज ए गैप, प्रोसेस गैप, यहाँ पे प्रोसेस गैप है। देन व्हाट आई विल आस्क देम वाज, देर इज अ रिस्क हियर, आप पहले अपना डिजाइन बराबर करो, ये यूजर्स को तो डीएक्टिवेट करो ही करो। सो फ्यू थिंग्स आई लास्ट फ्रॉम यू इज, you give me a permanent fix to the solution and you give me a temporary fix to the solution. Temporary fix is अभी का अभी ये यूजर को डीएक्टिवेट कर दो जो जो मैंने आइडेंटिफाई किए, दैट इज टेम्पररी फिक्स। परमानेंट फिक्स इज गोइंग फॉरवर्ड ऐसे इशू नहीं आना चाहिए, इसके लिए व्हाट आर द थिंग्स यू आर गोइंग टू पुट इन प्लेस, व्हाट आर द प्रिवेंटिव एक्शंस यू आर गोइंग टू पुट इन प्लेस। तो ये सब चीज you have to ensure that you get it from there. So we will discuss more on this in the coming session as well. आगे भी जब एक्सेप्शनल हैंडलिंग का एक सेपरेट टॉपिक है जहाँ पे अगर कुछ डिविएशंस आता है कैसे हम लोग हैंडल करते हैं, at that time also we will discuss more about this. But as for now we are concentrating on user access termination and deprovisioning, so you have to just remember that. And what I would request is that right from beginning, SOX background, SOX goals, what are the companies applicable for SOX, what would be the consequences if you don't follow SOX, what are the ITGC components, what are the different sections of SOX, access provisioning, deprovisioning, just go through it. And let me know if you have any questions. We can discuss further in Saturday session as well. Any questions till now, whatever we have discussed? So, any questions?
No, sir. No. No.
Okay. Just I'm just waiting for Naveen. I guess he has some issues. Uh, okay. Okay. So we will stop the session here today, and we will connect again on Saturday. So basically,